the intersection of politics and money. This is Political Capital. I'm Karabole Tlhatla. Now back to our main story, which is the governance at SARS. My colleague Aviwe Mtila spoke to the man defending the three men at the center of the SARS dispute.
In a letter which I've addressed to the NPA on behalf of my clients, I make the point on behalf of Mr. Pillay. Two important points. Firstly, in December 2014, Mr. Pillay went to Mr. Moyane and said, Mr. Moyane, I would like to chat to you and demystify this concept of Project Sunday evenings. Mr. Moyane didn't want to hear him. He rebuffed him. Surprisingly, in May 2015, after the Mail and Guardian posed certain questions to the Commissioner, this charge or this docket was then lodged at the Brooklyn Police Station by Mr. Moyane as the complainant. There is evidence which exists, which is already in court papers, to show that Mr. Moyane was the individual who went and lodged the complaint at the Brooklyn Police Station. Another glaring point that Mr. Pillay raises is that Mr. Lombard, who we understand is a witness on behalf of the state, and we understand that he intends to avail himself of the Section 204 indemnity from prosecution. We understand this. Obviously, I don't have anything in hard evidence, but we understand it. Mr. Pillay puts in the letter, he finds it of great concern that when KPMG wanted to interview Mr. Lombard on this very issue, before Mr. Lombard attended or could attend the interview, he apparently got a call from Mr. Moyane, who said to him or suggested to him that he should not attend the interview. And we understand that he feigned an illness. The end result was he did not attend an interview with KPMG, and KPMG arrived at a conclusion in relation to this particular incident, Project Sunday Evenings, without having the benefit of interviewing the most important person, Mr. Lombard. So we raise these questions in a letter to the NPA because what we're saying is, in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the NPA's prosecutorial guide, just like other South African citizens have been afforded the opportunity to make representations to the state before a decision has been taken to prosecute them, why should our clients not be afforded the same courtesy and the same respect for legal rights? Why not? It's no good to say, we've charged you and we're now prepared to accept representations from you, because in charging, you've made a decision that you're going to charge. Now you're going to receive a representations where I, on behalf of my clients, is going to say, based on these facts, on this evidence, we're urging you to reconsider your decision which you've already taken to charge. Put the cart before the horse. Why the rush when my clients have since 2016 been saying, we volunteer ourselves, we've got nothing to hide, give us an opportunity to put the evidence before you make a decision. That didn't happen.
Number of irregularities that you're mentioning over there, which of course make one raises an eyebrow. But let's look. You say this is a case that has been supposedly happening since 2007, the Project Sunday Evenings. Let's look at the merits of the case. Was there a rogue unit at SARS?
Let's deal with two issues. Firstly, it's important that we have respect for the legal process and that we not try a case in the media. However, the most fundamental issue which has to be pointed out is that this notion of a rogue unit bore its existence from a report called the Sikhakhane report. The interpretation with respect of the Sikhakhane panel is wrong in law. That was pointed out by the attorneys representing Minister Gordhan, Gildenhuys Malachi, already in August 2016, pointed out to the Hawks that the definition of the unit as a rogue unit was wrong in law. All you need to do is read Section 3 of the specific legislation and you will see clearly there that the notion that this was a rogue unit is an error in law. Now, when one establishes that a unit was lawfully established, there may have been certain conduct during the course of years which may have been unlawful. That does not render the actual formulation of the formation of the unit as an unlawful rogue unit. So without dealing with the merits of the case, it's important to put forward that this categorization of the unit as a rogue unit needs to be dispelled. The unit was lawfully established in accordance with statute.
Now, of course, similar charges were brought up, I think in 2016, to Pravin Gordhan, who also was involved, but those were later on dropped. I understand you also represented a client over there. Can you just take us back a bit and just let us know what happened over there?
Yes, I have the privilege of representing a man by the name of Mr. Flock Symington, who is a highly qualified lawyer employed by SARS, who in fact was held hostage at SARS's premises just before the prosecution was dropped against Minister Gordhan, Mr. Pillay and Mr. Magashule. And it really arose out of what I said earlier. Mr. Symington had authored an opinion prior to any decisions being taken regarding Mr. Pillay's early retirement. And his opinion was that it was entirely lawful, that all procedures had been properly followed, and that there was nothing unlawful about that. Now, what had happened was that there was a suppression of that opinion by SARS and or the Hawks. The NPA were not given that piece of evidence. And the moment that piece of evidence was brought to the fore, if I recall correctly, by freedom under law, Mr. Abrams had to withdraw the prosecution. And he wrote a letter to Mr. Ntlameza, as I said earlier, questioning, when were you going to deem it appropriate to give us this exculpatory evidence? For had they had that evidence at the beginning, there would never have been a prosecution in the first instance.
Now, similar charges have been brought up under Project Sunday Evenings recently to your 3 clients now. Why?
I'm a lawyer. It's hard to speculate on what happens in the political sphere. I find the timing very interesting, especially if one looks at the breaking news today where Mr. Makwakwa has resigned with immediate effect. It is no secret that there's a need for change. There's no secret that our revenue authorities have been decimated, and that in order for our economy to prosper in the way it should, we need a functional revenue service that operates with honesty and integrity, which means, by necessity, that certain key people who are presently occupying positions within the revenue service ought not to be occupying those positions because they are not fit and proper for the positions that they occupy. I cannot say more, I cannot speculate more, but I would imagine timing is very interesting.
I was about to go into that exactly. Timing of this is questionable, as you mentioned. You also mentioned politics at play. Could it be to do with the new president that we have at the helm now, Cyril Ramaphosa, fighting corruption? Why do you think maybe that is one of the reasons that these charges are being reinstated now?
We talk about a new dawn. Might be a cliche, but a lot of us as South African citizens are feeling optimistic about a new dawn. It's no secret that we've been living in a state of depression caused by state capture, caused by corruption. And if one is going to bring life to this new dawn, it's no good to just replace one person. The corruption extends at various levels into just about every single state-owned entity, law enforcement, prosecutorial authorities. There's a need to rid all of those institutions of people who do not espouse the principles of honesty and integrity, and working for the benefit of all people living in South Africa, all South African citizens. Until that happens, we are going to see dirty tricks.
Now, you've been looking at the legalities around SARS for a number of years now, especially with you having clients that have to deal with SARS. Now, looking at those legalities, and in your legal opinion, do you believe that there are any wrongdoings or criminal activities, perhaps from the SARS commissioner?
I think that based upon matters which are in the public domain, and if one takes as a mere example Mr. Makwakwa and the latest article that was published regarding a contract entered into between SARS and the Debt Collection Agency, and an FIC report which identified unlawful payments being made, and a limited terms of reference given to firms of attorneys to only investigate certain aspects and not others, I'm very concerned that that's not the conduct of somebody who believes without fear or favor, if you do wrong, you are going to face the consequences.
Again, in your legal opinion, Sean Abrams?
Mr. Abrams has been found by the courts to not be the appropriate person to occupy his position. There's a judgment pending by the Constitutional Court, which at long last will hopefully put this issue to bed. So too, unfortunately, has the NPA been tarnished with the notion that the prosecution of certain people has been suppressed or has been withheld for untoward reasons. What we need is we need an NPA that is free and fair and without fear and favor, and honesty and integrity will ensure that people who do wrong, no matter who they are, will suffer the might of the law, and that we should all have respect for that process and not be concerned that there is a hidden agenda which is going on behind the prosecution of certain individuals and the non-prosecution of others.
Now, the case is going to be heard on the 9th of April. What should we expect? Are your men, do you have faith in your representation of them? Is it going to be a easy one, if I can put it that way, for you, or are you prepared?
Let's put it this way. The appearance on the 9th of April is not to run the trial. It will be to remand it to another date. And without wishing to try the matter in the media, my clients have faith in the judicial process. My clients believe that the evidence will set them free and that there's nothing to fear about the truth. The issue that one must bear in mind is that the state bears the onus to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Based upon what I've mentioned before on the two issues about Mr. Moyane in December 2014 not wanting to hear about the demystification of this project Sunday evenings, and Mr. Lombard being told to take sick leave instead of attending an interview at KPMG where he is the key person who can explain this, calls into question how this matter has been handled. But once again, let's not prejudge. The state has an onus, the state has a duty, and we will ensure that the evidence gets put before the court and that the judicial process will take its course.
Thank you very much for being with us on this episode of Political Capital. We're back on your screens next Tuesday at 16:30 Central African Time from us here. Good evening.